the IEC says over 2.9 million voters heeded the call to register for next year's elections. Now, majority of the voters visited the voting stations to register as well as update their details, while others opted for the online portal. According to the IEC, Gauteng, KwaZulu Natal and the Eastern Cape recorded the most of these registration transactions. Let's now speak to Groundwork Collective CEO Mbali Ntuli on the release of these voter registration numbers. Thank you so much for your time this afternoon. I mean, the IEC is saying that the voters' roll now has about 26.8 million voters, an increase from 26.3 million before the registration weekend. Your reaction?
Good afternoon. Thank you so much for having me. I think it's great because obviously there's been a declining voter participation in our country, and much of that has also had our voters' roll starts to age, and we've been seeing it immigrating. And so it's great that we've been able to add the additional people. But of course, the numbers of how many people came out isn't the full numbers. So in 2018, of course, there were 490,000 new registries. 2019 saw 574,000, and this was before the online portal of the IEC came on. And with this voter registration, we saw 568,000 new voters who came out to register for the first time, 196,000 of those being online. So I think what's the real great story about this is that with the IEC embracing technology, whether it's with their VDM machines or the fact that they have gone digital and allowing people to register at any time, I think that's what's really changed the tide and seeing more people come out than ever before. And so it's a great accolade for them, but it also shows that there's still a lot of work to be done, because more than half of the people that came out were actually just checking where they actually were, and about 1.4 million of them were re-registering in the same places that they were registered anyway.
And going into this weekend, there was a lot of concern and a lot of focus as well towards, young people. You think about the fact that the IEC in its statement saying that young persons in the age category of 16 to 29 account for around 445,000, and also saying that, this is of course seen in the number of new voters, and saying that the efforts that they've been putting in there have actually now started to yield the results. This is always going to be the focus going into next year. How much more work do they need to do now to ensure that more and more young people heed this particular call?
I think it's great that the IEC has taken the lead. I think organizations like mine and other civil society organizations are right there helping. We also have a digital online portal that helps to register people, and we registered a couple of thousands of them this weekend as well. But I think it's still far too little considering how many young people are eligible to vote. I mean, we've got over 14 million young people that should have been part of this cohort that have gone on, and 445,000 is not even touching sides when it comes to that. So I think the IEC's strategy in terms of focusing on young people is absolutely the right one. They're the only ones that can grow the voters' roll, and they make up 70% of our population. But it shows that we still have a significant way to go to reaching them, because we still really haven't made a dent in the amount of them that could have gone up. And our voters' roll being 26.8 million people, when it should be close to 40, shows that we still have a long way to go before we really can say that we have a registry that is representative of the majority of all South Africans. But I still think that there's a lot of accolades and congratulations that we should give to the IEC.
And Mbali, you are on the ground, you're speaking to people on a daily basis to also try to get them to understand the importance of their vote. Let's talk about this, because someone is watching tonight and they still share the sentiment that others have, to say that for them, they believe it's just one vote. It's not going to make any difference, so I'm not going to bother myself. Let's speak to someone like that, because they do not understand just how important their own vote is.
I think the very clear message is that we've really gotten into this idea of thinking that voting is an individual thing in South Africa. Your choice is individual, but voting is a group project. It's democracy. It's very hard to get anything changed if we all believe that our one single thing, or one single vote, or one single choice doesn't make a difference. When we've seen actually that when communities come together, they absolutely are able to make a difference. And if you're a young person who's sitting without a job, without water, without any kind of opportunity, you need to know that that's a political choice has been made to make sure that you're in that situation. And unless you're going to make sure that you have your voice heard and can educate yourself on how to make sure that you can empower yourself to take the kind of action that is needed to hold the people in power to account, or more importantly, to be able to do it on your own with our very participatory democracy, you're going to continue to be in that situation. There's no loss to voting. You don't lose anything by going to exercise your vote, but you definitely lose something by not exercising your vote, because you allow people that aren't in the positions that you are in or have the circumstances that you are in to be able to make the choice on your behalf. And so we have to get out of this preciousness of thinking that nothing is political or that we have endless choices of waiting for a perfect savior. We have a declining democracy, and we have some serious issues in South Africa that require all of us to get up and make sure that our voices are heard and to show that we aren't happy with the status quo. And that isn't going to happen if you think that sitting at home is going to change it.
And I suppose one of the other things as well that one thinks about, particularly when it comes to the IEC, should we not be having voter, education throughout, as opposed to having these directed education, drives closer to either registration weekend or the election? But if it is part of our daily lives, I suppose that could also help change perceptions?
Definitely, and that's why in my organization of the Groundwork Election, the cornerstone of the work that we do is actually civic education, not just voter education, but the civics around how you get your democracy to work, how does the electoral processes work, and all the many things that come with making you an active citizen. But in defense of the IEC, that actually isn't their mandate. Their mandate is to ensure that there are free and fair elections, whether they be the countrywide ones or the SGB. And so they aren't always funded to do that kind of work. And perhaps the conversation we should next be having is, should this not be part of our curriculum? And if that is the case, would the next step not even be to say that perhaps we should just get rid of the idea of people having to register to vote at all, and saying that everyone who turns 16 or 18 should be able to vote? And so then you wouldn't have the hurdle that we have of this declining participation. But then again, there's arguments to say that that needs to is something that isn't valuable to people. But certainly in terms of the curriculum and voter and civic education, we need it desperately in this country, because it is at low levels across the board. It doesn't matter the LSM or the socioeconomic background. Many people don't understand the basics of how even their own ward committee outside where they live works, never mind when their council meetings are, or what even a ward councillor or an MPL does, for example.
Yeah, and that's the big one, especially because people put people in office, but sometimes they don't even know what those people should be held to account for. But let me thank you so much for your time, Mbali, because active citizenry is something that, has been spoken about even in recent times, to say that it is something that really needs to be resuscitated. But let me thank you for your inputs there. That was Groundwork Collective CEO, Mbali Ntuli.